What's up, guys? Happy Friday. Welcome to lesson 2 of your chapter on integers. And hopefully you're super excited today. No more fractions still. We're working on negative and positive integers, right? Numbers on a number line. These guys right here, positive and negative whole numbers. No fractions, no decimals, right? Those are not integers. These are, okay? And we're going to start our discussion today with opposites, okay? Opposites are numbers that are the same distance from 0 on either end of the number line. For example, 1 and -1 are the same space away from 0. They're just 1 away, but on opposite sides. So that means that -1 and 1 are opposites. The same for -2 and 2 are opposites, and -3 and 3, and -4 and +4, and -5 +5, right? The same digit, but negative and positive are considered opposites of one another. And that may seem a little easy. It kind of is, right? Numbers that are the same distance from each other on from zero on either end of the number line are called opposites. It's the same thing, just negative, right? So that's going to start our discussion today. We could get a little tricky, and I can ask you, what's the opposite of an opposite, right? So what if I said, what's the opposite of 5? The opposite of 5 would be -5. The opposite of that would be 5 again. So be ready to be a little tricky today. Just keep your eye out for me, okay? First question. Find the opposite of -5. Well, if you were at -5 and you were to find the opposite of that, then you would go to 0 and you would see how far away that was from 0. And it's 5 away, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But then you would just count from 0 the other direction, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and find out that the opposite of -5 is, in fact, 5. Yep, this is the lesson. This is happening right now. Okay? So that is what an opposite is. 2 questions for you. Pause the video right now and answer these questions for me, please. Hopefully you're coming back to me with 2 answers here for A and B. A, what is the opposite of 3? The opposite of 3 would be the negative version, since that is a positive 3. So it would be a -3. B, what is the opposite of -2? Now, I told you I was going to get tricky. Okay, so let's think about this. The opposite of -2. Okay, well, what's the opposite of -2? Well, that's +2. What's the opposite of that? Right back to where we started, to -2. It's like a double negative. See how it's like the same thing? That's kind of weird to think about. But double negatives are a really important part of this lesson and upcoming as well. The opposite of the opposite is like saying 2 negatives. It's almost like me saying, no, I don't not want a piece of candy. I what? I don't not want a piece of candy. We call that a double negative in terms of like reading, right? Or speaking in the English language, like a double negative. And what it actually does is cancels out. So when you say, I don't not want a piece of candy, that means you really do. Right? So maybe you could try to trick your parents, like, I don't not want a $20 allowance, Mom. And she say, okay. And you're like, ha! Gotcha! You owe me $20, lady. Okay, that might not work. We're going to try though, right? Next thing we're going to talk about. I think that opposites are a pretty okay concept. Next thing we're going to talk about is absolute value. So we have this idea that 2 things can be the same distance from 0 on a number line. But we're going to talk about absolute value today. So for example, this problem here tells me to draw a tree 3 yards to the west. So here's my pretty tree. Okay. Don't talk crap about my tree. All right. And then it says to draw a mailbox 3 yards to the east of the house. So here's my mailbox sticking out of the ground. Again, shut up. I'm trying my best. All right. So the idea here, you can't see my house here. The idea here for absolute value is basically just saying that no matter which direction you go on a number line, absolute value means it's still a distance. We're talking about distance on the number line. And here's a concept that you guys all need to understand. Distance is always positive. Always. Distance is always positive. If I ask you how far away is 5 from 0, on the number line, you would say it's 5 away. And then I might ask you, how far is -5 away from 0 on the number line? And you would say, oh, well, it's -5 away. No, it's not. There's no such thing as negative distance. Now, I've taught this before, and I've had some chuckleheads try to tell me there is such thing as negative distance, right? And I'll say, okay, well, tell me how you get negative distance. We're like, well, you could just walk backwards. That's negative. No, it's not. You're still moving a distance. It's not negative. You're not going to have any. So if you see absolute value of something, you know we're talking distance from 0. And if you look at my example right here, the distance the mailbox is and the distance that the tree is, no matter which direction you go, they're still 3 away, right? And that's how we're kind of going into this concept of absolute value. So you might get a question. It's going to look like this, right? I might say, what is the absolute value of 4? We put these two big lines on the outside of them. These are not parentheses. They kind of look like them. We kind of treat them like them, but they are not parentheses. They're called absolute value bars. And what this statement says right here is, what is the absolute value of 4? Remember, absolute value, distance from 0. That is the most important thing you're going to learn today. Distance from 0. What is that number's distance from 0? How far away is 4 from 0? The answer to that question? It's 4 away from 0. If you look at a number line right here, 4 right there is 1, 2, 3, 4 away from 0. So if I ask you what's the absolute value of 4, you say it's 4. That's how far away it is from 0. Now here's where it gets a little interesting. What if I were to say, what's the absolute value of -4? Same question, guys. That right there, distance from 0. What is this number's distance from 0? Well, if you look up here, even though it's negative, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 away. So the absolute value of -4 is 4. And that's what absolute value is. Okay, now it gets a little tricky. It gets a little bit more fun, I think, because we get to add what else we know about math into this as well. So let's take a look at our next example. Evaluate the absolute value of -7, right? That's what we're focusing in on right now. What is the absolute value of -7? The question here is, how far away is that number right there? How far is that from 0? If you look on a number line, here's 0, there's -7, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 away. Right? It's 7 from 0. So the answer is, in fact, 7. So let's see if we understand this. Let's add a little bit of arithmetic to it. Let's try this one out. Evaluate. And I'm going to read, you have to learn to read these sentences just like you would read in reading class, right? This is a sentence, it's just a number sentence. So read it to yourself. This says, evaluate the absolute value of 5 plus the absolute value of -6. So if you're going to add the absolute value of 5 and the absolute value of -6 together, you need to know what the absolute value of 5 and the absolute value of -6 is. So let's find those first. What is the absolute value of 5? How far away is that number from 0? Well, it's 5 away, absolutely. Plus, what is the absolute value of -6? How far away is this away from 0? Even though it's backwards, even though it's in the negatives, it's 6 away. So we would say that the absolute value of -6 here is 6. So this problem really turns into, instead of absolute value of 5 plus absolute value of -6, it's really asking us, what is 5 plus 6? The answer to that question is 11. Now let's try a couple on your own. I want to see if you guys can give me the answers to these 30 questions. Pause the video, try these ones out. This is going to be our last little bit here. So really try on these ones and let's see if you got them right. Welcome back. Hopefully, and if you didn't pause the video, this is really awkward. I've just been sitting here like this looking at you. Anyway, C. This says, what is the absolute value of 14? Meaning, how far away is that number from 0? Well, it's 14 away. The answer is 14. It's that problem. Next one. This one reads, and hopefully you're reading them too, practicing getting the number sentences down. This says the absolute value of -9 plus the absolute value of 3. Well, the absolute value of -9 is 9, because -9 is 9 away from 0. Plus, the absolute value of 3 is 3, because that's 3 away from 0. 9 plus 3 is 12. Next one. The absolute value of -8 minus the absolute value of -2. This looks so weird and crazy, right? All these lines and all these negatives. Well, let's focus in on one thing at a time. Let's take care of this absolute value of -8. Well, what is the absolute value of -8? How far away is -8 from 0? It is 8 away from 0, right? Then we move along here. We know we're going to be subtracting. And then finally, what is the absolute value of -2? How far away is -2 from 0? Well, it's just 2 away, even though it's backwards, right? Now we can do the problem that it asked us to do. From absolute value of -8 minus absolute value of -2 to, really it's just asking us what's 8 minus 2? The answer to that is 6. Now, there's some different ways that they can use these absolute values and stuff. I'm going to show you one more way before we go today. You might run into a question like this where it might say the absolute value of 15 minus 4. And they might put the absolute value bars around an expression, like where you actually would have to do this subtraction first and then find the absolute value. So you might have to do 15 minus 4 and get 11 and tell me what the absolute value of 11 is, which would be equal to, obviously, 11, right? So sometimes it can do that as well. So be on the lookout for that. Good luck on the assignment today, guys. Make sure you ask me questions if you got them. And if you get this in the assignment, then have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys on Monday.